Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Oklahoma Postgame Live as Oklahoma beats Iowa State 50-20 under the lights at Owen Field tonight. Thanks for jumping on. We'll be here for the next hour, just talking everything about Oklahoma's victory over Iowa State and looking ahead. Finally, really realistically, I know players can't look ahead. Fans, people that cover the sport certainly can look ahead, and I think there was a certain amount of look ahead for us watching just the potential of what next weekend could look like for this game. But we're going to take care of business first and foremost. So welcome in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so that you do know when we go live. Typically, we will go live with me and Mark every Wednesday around 11:30, previewing, talking a little bit about last week's game, and then previewing the week ahead. Friday, we will do typically around the 3 p.m. time frame. We'll do our Sooner Tailgate Live, and then now post-game live. Most times, generally speaking, we'll do it pretty close to after the game. So yeah, overall, so Oklahoma did, at the end of the day, did what they needed to do. Not necessarily just in this game, but overall, the first 5 games, Oklahoma comes into Red River 5-0, where they needed to be. A far cry from where this team was a year ago at this time, really just kind of limping into this game with losses to Kansas State and TCU ahead of this game, and then this year Oklahoma being 5-0. So I think before we kind of get into that a little bit, let's recap and talk about everything really there is to talk about this game. So just giving my thoughts overall, offense and defense, and just kind of overall team wise. So just kind of starting overall team wise, this could easily have been a game where Oklahoma was very much looking ahead, not focused on a lot of things, and there was a little bit of that, but by and large, there was not a lot of that. I know the narrative for some after this game is going to be, man, this defense really struggled in the first half, giving up 20 points to Iowa State early on. And yeah, there was a couple of busts. There was a couple of I think Oklahoma got caught in a couple of bad defensive plays, and Iowa State was able to gash them. There was a couple of, I think, where Key Lawrence really didn't make a couple of plays on the ball, had opportunities to. There was one of the long touchdown catch where Oklahoma had two guys really just kind of ran into each other simultaneously right there, and that's what allowed that play to happen. But so that's on the negative. The good thing, and this is what I continue to harp on with this team that is so much different defensively, is that last year and years past, when Oklahoma struggles and gives up these plays and gives up these points, it snowballs big time. But you didn't see that. You haven't seen that all year, and you didn't see that at all today. When you look at the game, Iowa State scored. Iowa State scored to go down 21-20 with 9 minutes and 6 seconds left to go in the second quarter. Oklahoma held them scoreless for the next. What would that have been? 39, almost 40 minutes of the game. So really, you've got 2 big plays for 100. 2 of their biggest plays went for 119 yards, and then overall, they only had just a little over 300 yards total in the game, 352 total, and some of that was really late in garbage time. So yeah, got to get some of that cleaned up for sure. But you like the resilience that this team has defensively, specifically. This team has played bad defense for, the better part of the last 10 to 15 years. And so I think just noticing that and seeing that, I think that's a big positive, not only for the rest of the season, but specifically going into next week against Texas. So I think that overall team-wise, I think that's my biggest takeaway. Iowa State is a team that's been in the bottom half the last couple of years of the Big 12, but they're a team that doesn't get blown out. I think this is the first time that this is only the second time maybe that I read or that I heard that this team that Iowa State has lost by more than 14 points in the last 3 years. So kudos to Oklahoma to getting this done. This could have easily been a game maybe in the past where Oklahoma just sleptwalked through the entirety of the game and didn't look good, just struggled to win the game. But that, like I said, that really wasn't the case after Iowa State got that field goal to go down 21-20. Oklahoma outscored them 29-0 the remainder of the game, and really let off the gas pedal a bunch in the second half. Obviously, as you guys saw in this game. So let's talk a little bit offensively. I think there was a lot to be excited about if you're an Oklahoma fan, which I'm sure you are if you're watching this. A lot to be excited about. I think the run game for me was the biggest area of positivity. Oklahoma ran for 157 yards in this game, 4.1 yards per carry. I think that I can't tell you how big that is going into next week. It just gives this team an opportunity to be, if you go into you're playing a team like Texas, as good as they are defensively, particularly as good as they are up front, and being able to be only being one-dimensional going into that game severely handcuffs you. So Oklahoma's ability to run the ball against a really good defense, particularly a really good run defense, I think is something that is really positive going into next week. Marcus Major probably ran the ball the best that he's certainly all year, but one of the best that games that he's ever had. 19 carries for 66 yards. Ran the ball tough in between the tackles. Ran the ball well outside as well. And then we saw Tawi Walker get in there a little bit. Gavin Sawchuk really just kind of getting back into the groove. And so we've got a comment here about absolutely. I mean, it's going to come. So Oklahoma's almost, after the Texas game, they'll be halfway through the season, believe it or not, through the regular season at least. And, you're in a situation where I think I don't know. I don't profess to know what's going on with Javonte Barnes. Didn't get on the field at all today again. Either he's still got something lingering that's bothering him, or he's just in the doghouse. Either way, it doesn't necessarily really matter all that much. Just to say that it looks like Marcus Major, Gavin Sawchuk, and Tawi Walker are going to be the three guys that are going to be in the rotation, at least for the time being. I say that we could see Javonte Barnes, next week in Dallas, but I think right now this is the rotation, and like you're seeing the offensive line play better. You're seeing you're seeing the running backs. I think Marcus Major ran with a lot more patience tonight than they had in the past. So getting that running game going at the right time is really going to be pivotal for for next week against Texas. Dylan Gabriel, looking at his stats overall, 26 out of 39, 366 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground. So really solid, really kind of a bounce back game for DG in this one. Didn't play terrible last week or even bad last week at all. Just, missed some opportunities. And I think he hit on a lot of those opportunities this week. Still, there was a couple that was, a couple that he underthrew, but no, great game overall for DG. He's still one of the top completion percentage quarterbacks in the country this year. The interception that he had, I don't put that one. I don't really put that one on him. Jalil Farouk's got to break that route in a little bit. It was more he kind of rounded it out. He's got to kind of flatten that out a little bit more. So I think that's that was really more on the receiver than it was on him. But coming into this game, 15 touchdowns, 15 touchdown passes on the year, only 2 interceptions. So playing at a high level right now for Oklahoma. And I think, you can't undersell how good this receiving core has been so far this year. It's been excellent. I think you see, the benefit of our new, wide receiver coach Emmett Jones in there, and you got a lot of guys, frankly, for Oklahoma that you are you're comfortable with as a fan, and I would think as a coaching staff as well. You've got you've got a situation where there's about 5 or 6 guys that you can play, and I think that's one of the things that's helpful for. I mean, Jalil Frooks obviously one of the top 2 or 3 wide receivers on this team, but he gets gassed easily sometimes, especially if he's running a lot of these longer routes, especially a couple times in a row. He's going to need a breather. So you've got Jaden Gibson that's playing at a high level. You've got Nick Anderson that's playing at a really high level. Drake Stoops, obviously, Jalil Farouk, Andrell Anthony didn't get as much, as many catches tonight as he has gotten. Actually, just had 1 catch for 16 yards. I think that was early on in the game. Without a doubt, but Jalil, spread the wealth a lot tonight. Jalil Farouk, 5 catches for 81 yards. Brendan Thompson, 2 for 62. Nick Anderson, 2 for 56 in the score. Jaden Gibson, 2 for 50 in the touchdown. Drake Stoops had 5 for 32 in the score. So you get the point. There's a lot. Oklahoma has a lot of weapons that they can go to from that wide receiver position, and it was good overall. So offensively was actually, for me, was much better than I even, to be honest, really anticipated. It being Oklahoma being able to put up 50 points, particularly 40 points in the first half against a team as good defensively as Iowa State is and has been, is impressive. Is impressive. So I had predicted somewhere in the neighborhood of 30-10. That was my prediction, and I thought Oklahoma would not necessarily struggle, but I thought Oklahoma would be one of those where they would have to grind it out, for sure in this game. So let's pause and we'll take some of your comments and questions, and then we'll I think it'll kind of lend us into the defense discussion for sure. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining, brother. Appreciate you. Haven't seen you in a while. Biggie, slow start for the defense. I think they got caught looking ahead to next week, but they locked in and played a good game. Yeah, and I think whether it was they weren't just incredibly assignment sound early on in the game. I think you saw one on the first touchdown where Key Lawrence was really just instead of attacking the receiver, he was attacking the ball, and he was really a count late. And again, him and Billy Bowman really kind of ran into each other on the second long touchdown pass across the middle. And then I think there was some issues from a run fit perspective that got some of those runs early on in the game. But over the last really 39 minutes of the game, Oklahoma held Iowa State scoreless and gave up 2.8 yards per play. You'll take that. So I love the bounce back again, that they, whether it was looking ahead or just not completely focused. Whatever BV said to him at halftime certainly got them laser focused, because they were lights out in the second half. Stoops looked really good. Yeah, always does. He's a model of consistency for sure. K Prime, thanks for being on here. What do you think about the safety play in the first half? It worries me about the game next week. Yeah, I think it's a situation where it's been a bit of a. I don't know if a revolving door is the right way to say it, but you guys remember Reggie Pearson did not play well against Tulsa, got victimized on a couple of plays, and then got injured a little bit and kind of got replaced at the same time, but got injured. Key Lawrence came in there. Key Lawrence played really well last week, did not play well tonight. I don't think there's any two ways about it. Didn't play well and didn't play a ton after a couple of those mix-ups earlier on. Reggie Pearson actually played a lot better tonight. So I think you're probably I think you'll probably see a little more Reggie Pearson, a little more Peyton Bowen. And then and they're going to mix in Key Lawrence in there as well, but certainly not one of his better games. And he struggled, in a couple of different big plays that showed up in this game for Oklahoma on the negative side. Defense definitely took a minute to get comfortable. Yeah, and I think, like I said, they did struggle early on, but you have to love the way they responded. In the past, this is a game where Oklahoma's defense would just struggle and struggle and struggle, and they would not they would not get up off the mat, but they got up off the mat really quickly in this game and just played, like I said, played lights out over the last 39 minutes of the game. The offensive line run game is a major problem. I think it's been a problem all year, certainly. I don't think that certainly can be disputed. To this point, like I think today was the best that it's been all year long against a really stout defensive line. So I think we'll see when you go back and kind of look and see what Oklahoma did. I think specifically to do well in the run game. I think what's going to be the issue is I think Oklahoma is if they're able to get out wide, maybe a little bit more, maybe some more like outside zone game, maybe some of that gap scheme that they've ran a lot previously under Lincoln Riley, and still to a certain degree here as well. At Oklahoma, while Levy's been here at Oklahoma, so I think that will continue to pay some dividends. So they'll just have to be creative. This is not a team that has a strong offensive line, so they're going to have to find ways to be creative. I think the big thing next week is going to be the pass blocking, because they're not going to have a ton of success running the ball in between the tackles against Texas. Texas is probably, I think right now, I've watched a lot of college football this year. Texas, to me, looks like maybe the best defensive line in the country, regardless Big 12 overall. They're that good, but you can get some things done with them on the outside. So I think that you saw a little bit of that. If you guys watched the Kansas and Texas game today, you saw a little bit of that where they were able to get some things done on the outside. Not enough consistently for sure in that game, but they were able to do some good things. Texas had over almost 700 yards of total offense in that game. Yes, they significantly wore down Kansas as the game went on, for sure. But Texas actually they looked pretty good. That game could have gotten even more out of hand than what it did. So in that game, and I was just kind of looking at some of the Kansas statistics. They ran for 124 yards, 25 carries in the game, and they were really one-dimensional in that game as well. So we'll see. Monty, love the comment here. The response, the resiliency, and that's what you like to see out of your team. When things don't go well, how do they respond? Do they respond? Do they get off the mat in a positive way? And Oklahoma really did in this game. Got challenged a little bit and showed what they were made of. This is regardless of the schedule, this is a much improved football team. Okay, this is a legitimate top 10, 12, 15 team this year, and now they have an opportunity to prove it against the best team on their schedule. Probably the only top 25 team that Oklahoma's going to face all year. Kansas is the only one that could possibly get there, but probably not. I don't think so. It'll be interesting to see, and we'll talk a lot about that as the week goes, and probably even a little bit tonight too. Do you think they will run DG more for Red River? I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not a big fan of, him running a ton. Now, I think I'm a little bit just conditioned to the backup quarterback situation that Oklahoma had last year. Um, and Oklahoma was more equipped for a situation if DG were to go down. I think they're going to be creative in the run game. I don't know if that necessarily means there's a lot of QB run stuff for DG, but I think they're going to do some things to be a little bit more creative. So this is what I've heard, and we'll see how this kind of shows. This is what I've heard all off season, and this is what I've continued to hear during the the non-conference and these two conference games, that Oklahoma has held back, has done a lot of game planning, and has held back a decent amount on both sides for this game in Dallas next weekend. So we'll see. I think there's going to be some new things. There always is every year. There's some new things. There's new wrinkles that both teams really pull out for this game. But Oklahoma through the years, especially, has done that. So I look forward to kind of seeing what that looks like for Oklahoma next week for sure. And again, like we talked a little bit about the defense. Like I said, started really, really well with the Billy Bowman. A few of us have nicknamed him Billy Bowman Coleman, but really, really good play early on in the game. Oklahoma's defensive line was really good all game. Was all around the quarterback. Really, really dominated up front. Obviously, we talked about a couple of the safety plays and a couple of the run fit situations where Iowa State on a couple of possessions really gashed Oklahoma. And Oklahoma, it took a little bit to adjust. So, but again, when they did adjust, the last 39 minutes of the game, 2.8 yards per play, really weren't even close. Gave up a couple of first downs in the second half, but really, really nothing big. So yeah, it was a domination that you would expect. Good teams win, great teams cover. Oklahoma's covered every single game this year. I believe that's correct. I'll go back and double check that, but I do think that they've covered every game this year. So, it was overall. I think overall, not probably. I think that you gave up the most points that you've given up all year. When you say you gave up 20, that shows a different level of where this team is right now defensively than where they've been in the past. You only give up 20 points, and everybody's there's a lot of people on social media thinking the defense played horrible, and this was the worst defensive performance of the year, and it was. But again, worst defensive performance of the year, and you still, you get off the mat, you only give up the 20 points. So really solid overall. There's one thing, I think some of you saw that Danny Stutzman went out of the game late in the game. I think he just had a stinger from what I heard, from everything I heard. I think he's been kind of battling that a little bit throughout the year. I don't think it's certainly not going to be anything that, in my mind, that would keep him out of Red River next Saturday. But something to keep an eye on for sure. Gavin looked good catching passes. Yeah, absolutely. I think, they're going to, and that's a little bit of an extension of the run game. So we'll see. Like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of creativity, as I mentioned, in the run game for Oklahoma. This next week. And I think the one thing that, again, I mentioned this to Mark and I on Wednesday, and you would assume that last year is going to be just a high level of motivation for this team. It was the largest margin of victory for Texas ever in this game, 49 points. Oklahoma just completely got dominated. It could have been a lot worse than 49 points, quite honestly. So you would think that there is a high level of motivation for the program, for the coaches, for the kids, for everyone, trying to erase that and trying to be in a situation where Oklahoma puts themselves in a position to win. Big last year with a start like tonight, defense would have given up and would have been a dogfight all game. Yeah, absolutely. I think you're seeing the culture change, kind of before your eyes, so to speak, for Oklahoma's defense. It's not the same thing as it's been, just in terms of everything, all encompassing the culture, the players, the effort, the tackling, all of that stuff. You're seeing so much better open field tackling this year than you did than you have in previous years. There's been a couple of games where it hasn't been as good, but I think they got back to actually. I mean, there was a lot of good open field tackling tonight as well. So just a little bit of look into the Big 12 overall this weekend. Last night BYU beat Cincinnati 35-27, game that really went back and forth a lot. Cincinnati really very similar to their game earlier on in the year against Miami of Ohio, where they really outgained Miami of Ohio, but just couldn't get it done. Same thing in this game. Cincinnati had over 500 yards of total offense, outgained BYU by a good margin, almost by over 200 yards, but still was not able to get the win and convert on those. Some of the other games, Baylor actually came back to beat UCF. UCF had a 35, I believe it was a 35-7 lead in that game going into the fourth quarter. Actually, Baylor at 35-7, Baylor kicked a field goal to make it 35-10 with 3 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. And Baylor put up 26 points in the fourth quarter to win 36-35 over UCF, that game was at UCF. Texas Tech beat Houston 49-28. Houston's probably, I think you've got Houston and Oklahoma State right now that are really just kind of fighting tooth and nail for the worst team in the Big 12 right now. We talked a little bit about Texas and that win 40-14. Just put up a ton of points, ton of yards, and it could have been a lot worse. They struggled with some red zone stuff, missed a couple of field goals, but still, like I said earlier, I think they had like 661 yards of offense. Jonathan Brooks had over 200 yards on the ground in that game. As Kansas was obviously, I think we did. The game wasn't as competitive as I thought it might be with Jalen Daniels out of the game, and so they were hamstrung, so to speak, on that one. Obviously, Oklahoma wins 50-20, and then one game is still going on right now. TCU and West Virginia, really good game actually. West Virginia is up 24-21 with TCU with the ball. Looks like they have it at their own 10-yard line right now with just a little 3 minutes to go left in that game. Really good game there. So West Virginia is, I think, probably in my mind the biggest surprise of the year so far in the Big 12. They're a team that was predicted to go in the latter half, and they're staring at a potential win in Fort Worth here, going 4-1 to start the season for West Virginia. So and then just overall around the country today, I think one of the biggest ones earlier on was USC. Again, kind of the same thing that we saw, for years under Lincoln Riley, struggling defensively. USC had control of that game, 34-7, I think was at one point, and they hold on to win 48-41. Just terrible defense for USC. And so we'll look and see that with a couple of losses, sorry, I lost my train of thought. With a couple of losses, we've got Utah lost on Friday night. LSU loses to Ole Miss. I think those are the two main upsets ahead of Oklahoma. So Oklahoma will jump up a couple of spots, kind of depending on what how some other things kind of line out. I think Oklahoma probably in that anywhere from that 10 to 12 range going in. Texas will be obviously stay at number 3. Georgia struggled. Would be entirely surprised to see Michigan perhaps jump them. It probably won't happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did. With Georgia struggling and Nebraska Michigan rolled Nebraska 45-7 today. So then next week, just a preview of next week in the Big 12. Friday night, we've got Kansas State traveling to Stillwater to face Oklahoma State. Obviously, the big one in Dallas. UCF goes to Kansas. Texas Tech goes to Baylor, and TCU goes to Iowa State. A couple interesting games there, as well as it always is in the Big 12. It's very, when you get past Oklahoma and Texas, which I think right now are clearly the cream of the crop. In the conference, and then you've got Kansas State that's right up there as well, but the rest of them, are pretty distant below. But we'll see. Any team can get beat on any given day. So odds of us winning next week. So this is the first time since 2011. It's hard to believe it's been 12 years, 2011, that both Oklahoma and Texas are coming in to this game undefeated. Texas is a little bit more battle tested than Oklahoma, certainly with that game against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Alabama's not the same team as they have been, but still probably the best win so far in the country, right, going to Alabama and winning that game. Particularly in the manner that they won late, how they were able to get some big time plays and just run out the clock in that game. So Oklahoma's obviously not been tested. I mean, I don't think. In a certain way they have tonight. They were tested a little bit, and against almost said TCU, SMU, they were tested, but not by somebody, not by a team that has the talent level that Texas does. So those of you that have watched Texas, it's a much better team than they've been in the past. They're a much better team than they were a year ago. Now, I think Oklahoma has some opportunities. I don't think the secondary for Texas is great. Saw a couple of plays today where Kansas just wasn't able to take advantage of it, where they had guys wide open in the secondary. Alabama was able to take advantage of that to a certain degree. But I think there's some opportunities there in the secondary. So Oklahoma's not going to have to play really well to win the game. Texas probably has more talent on both sides of the ball, particularly up front on the defensive line. That, to me, that's the biggest matchup of the game. Really both lines of scrimmage. I mean, the line of scrimmage dictates a lot of things, but I think in this one, it'll be a big one. Texas defensive line, like I said, I think it's the best in the country that I've seen so far. If Oklahoma is able to hold up, if Oklahoma could run for 100 yards in this game, then I like their chances of winning. Just enough to keep them honest and things like that. I think the one thing that you saw a little bit today when you watched, if you watched Texas and Kansas, was that if you can get some pressure in Ewer's face, much like everyone else, but he doesn't like it. He cowers a little bit, throws off his back foot. Just he doesn't like guys around him. So if Oklahoma can find a way to make him uncomfortable, could chase him from the pocket, can can get in his face, can get some pressure on him. I think he's prone to make some mistakes. But I think the same could be said about Dylan Gabriel, probably on the other side, if people were kind of looking at that from that direction as well. So I think I saw this last week. I don't, we'll see when the line comes out. I'd heard that as of last week, Texas was about a 5.5-point favorite in this game. That's probably where I would put it. They'll probably come in anywhere from 5 to 7 point favorite. So I think Oklahoma absolutely has the capability to win. They've got to. Things that happen in this game in terms of some bad safety reads, some run fits, those things will cost Oklahoma big time in this game. And Texas is obviously a much better defense than Iowa State is. We'll talk about some of the key matchups and stuff like that, even the individual matchup as we go through the week. But yes, I think this is a team that Oklahoma has a much better opportunity, obviously, to win than they did last year. But it's a good opportunity to see what you're made of. You go in there and see and compete. I think one of the things that's interesting coming into this game, more so this year than it's ever been, is, and I don't say ever, but it's very rare that Texas comes into this game as a decided favorite, right? I mean, I think coming in last year, Texas was a little bit of a favorite just based on kind of the meltdown that Oklahoma had defensively those two games, Kansas State and TCU coming into this game. But the way that Oklahoma's played defense now, it's a little bit different. But going back to last year, I think Texas was a favorite, but there was a lot of uncertainty whether or not Dylan Gabriel was going to play. He even warmed up and went through everything, so there was a little bit of a chess match. So I don't think anyone really knew for sure if he was going to play or not. Thought it would be certainly would have been a challenge, a big time challenge for Oklahoma to win that game without even with Dylan Gabriel. But I say that to say it's an uncomfortable position, I think, for Texas. That all the pressure is on them this year. They are the team. They're a top 3 team right now. They're a team that had all these lofty expectations of going to the college football playoff, and now it's all in front of them in terms of what that looks like. So a lot more pressure on them than probably has been in years past, and typically Oklahoma is the one that's the big time favorite coming in. But I think just overall, before I get to that, I'll just a couple of questions about recruits. I haven't really heard a ton on recruits. I know that Oklahoma had a couple of 25 kids and even a 26 kid on campus. I know that IMG offensive lineman Jordan Seaton was scheduled to come. He canceled this visit to go on another visit. So I don't know where that kind of where that really puts OU in the Jordan seat. So he is an offensive lineman from IMG, teammates with David Stone. I almost said David King. David Stone, Jaden Jackson, Oklahoma commits already, but I know those two were in town. So I'll get a little bit more detail, and we'll talk about that on Wednesday. But I don't have a ton of detail on exactly who all the recruits are and if anyone is, potentially any kind of a commitment coming out of this. So the last thing I'll say, and like I said, we'll get into a lot more of this throughout the week, is and before we do that, I think I'd mentioned to you guys I'm actually going to be in Dallas this weekend on Friday and Saturday. Going down Friday, we'll be at the game Saturday, so we'll do some sort of a Sooner tailgate live from Dallas, and then we'll do our post game show certainly there as well. Once we get closer, we'll kind of confirm times and stuff and what that might look like for next week. But stay tuned. It's just a exciting, really, really exciting week. For me, it's been a while since I've been. So I'm excited to go. Haven't been in a while, but I think the one thing that's really that I'm really just super stoked about this upcoming weekend is this is going to be clearly the number one game in the country. Both teams are undefeated. Texas is top 5. Oklahoma probably will be 11 or 12, somewhere in that neighborhood. College Game Day has already announced that they're going to be live there from Dallas. I don't know about anything else. I don't know if Big Noon Kickoff is going to be there or not either. But just really exciting to have this game where it belongs as not just one of, but the best game in the country overall, not just the Big 12, the big game in the country. And so really, really, I mean, like I said, it's the best for me, the best rivalry, the best game, and like I said, exactly where it should be, without a doubt. Hey Barton, thanks for the contribution. How do you see Oklahoma's record playing out after the Texas game for the rest of the season? Early in the year, I kind of preseason I hovered like 9-3, 10-2 was where I thought Oklahoma would be. Now I'm still there. I think I'm leaning a little bit more kind of the 10-2 situation. If Oklahoma is able to win next weekend, I think 11-1, 12-0 is on the table, without a doubt. But also, you've got a couple of tough road games. You go to Kansas in a couple of weeks. If you see a healthy Jalen Daniels, that's a big challenge. Particularly for Oklahoma's defense. I know Oklahoma State is a shell of themselves, but going to Stillwater, playing them for the last time, they're going to be incredibly amped up for that game. So that'll be a challenge. You go to BYU as well. That'll be a challenge. But I think this team needs to be and should be no worse than 10-2. And I think if Oklahoma's 10-2, that gets them to the Big 12 championship game this year. Which, after going 6-7 last year in a season that many of us would just love to forget, that would be a huge bounce back season. Even if Oklahoma doesn't win a Big 12 championship, doesn't make the playoffs, and maybe let's just say they don't make a New Year's Six game, still 10-2 gets Oklahoma in the right path on going to the SEC, and I think that's the biggest thing for this year. Yes, you want to challenge for a Big 12 championship. You want to put yourself in a position, potentially to make the playoffs if things work right. But I think you want to get back on to the level of consistency that Oklahoma expects to be, which is playing for championships, which is having double-digit win seasons. And 6-7 is not the standard, not at all. So that's I'm still at 10-2, but could go as high as 11-1. I still think 12-0 would be hard to get to. Not saying that it can't happen. If some things happen and go the right way, you could certainly see a 12-0 regular season happening. But I lean more to the 10-2, 9-3. Blake, thanks for jumping. Georgia and Kentucky. Yeah, Georgia and Kentucky will be a big one as well. There's not a whole lot of big national games next week. Texas A&M hosts Alabama next week. Alabama's controlling Mississippi State 34-17 right now. So that's the other one. Other than that, there's not another really big game nationally next week. So it's good in any event, it's good for Oklahoma this game to be the best. BYU is not good, but you never know. That's late in the season. That's that's almost towards the middle to late part of November. You never know what the weather's going to be like in Provo and stuff like that. So, so in any event, okay. I appreciate everybody joining, and remember, this week we will go live at 11:30 with Mark, talking everything Texas. Friday we'll be live from Dallas somewhere. Maybe we'll see where we can get set up. It may end up being from the hotel room, but in any event, we'll do something live from the Dallas area as we preview, do our Sooner tailgate Friday, and then again we'll be. And depending on my travels and things like that, whenever I get set up, we'll be there. And then obviously we'll do our Oklahoma post game live. Probably not immediately following, but probably more in the later evening time next week. So it's been a long day for me personally. Got up I had to do some work this morning, 6 a.m. There's still a couple more games that are going on that are not completely final that I'd like to that I'm going to finish up watching here. But overall, great weekend of football again. Very blessed to be able to do this with you guys. Thank you guys for joining. Make sure you tell some people, and let's get a ton of people in here for OU Texas week. And you guys have a wonderful rest of the weekend. Boomer Sooner, and God bless.